これを渡しておこう。苦痛に耐えられぬとき飲むがいい。
Well, at least they're finally admitting that stuff is poison to her. We open this week with Aoyuki waiting on the gods of Amazon to bestow her with a gift. It at first looked like one of those wiggly exercise stick things, but then you notice the remote controls at the end and some familiar looking font.
このロングフィットでフィットネスゲームをしたいと思います。
Ah yes, the exercise accessory that judges you for just being a little overweight, damn it. But yeah, she had bought a long fit exercise controller for the Nintendo. Yeah, obviously, this is supposed to be a legally distinct version of a certain fitness product from a copyright claim excessive company. Kind of ironic considering all the other copyrighted stuff that's going to be in this episode that they probably got permission to use, and yet we all know that one company would never play ball. Probably also explains why they went from a ring to a bar.
Before you start and play the game at a level, I don't need a what? I'm ready!
Anyway, Hikari and Shion were also doing streams with them, so it became a bit of an indirect competition to see who could push themselves the most. To do so, this, again very judgmental game device asked Aoyuki some basic questions, including how much she worked out.
2あたりが妥当ですかね。すみません、嘘つきました、4です。
Welcome to the club, my sister. Surprisingly, she also seemed to reveal her weight on stream.
50キロですね。
And with that, all three VTubers started their workouts that I'm sure won't become prime meme material in their world. I mean, at least in Hikari's case, she was legit fit, so she had no real issues. However, the other two...
Partner, come on, you gotta relax. Don't force it. Gonna blow out your O-ring. Drop a lung.
In the end, the two were KO'd, while Hikari was gonna get my membership later. Exhausted from her workout, Aoyuki later broke out the cans and switched to her Shua personality for her night stream, and decided to just do some reactions watching her fellow VTubers live. Starting with Hikari, who of course was still alive and kicking, and playing some Gartic Phone, which is basically like Pictionary played through a game of telephone. And as it just so happened, she was the main subject. Though ironically, while she was being drawn like the actual Shua-chan, Hikari was more like the Governator herself.
光は限界を超える。いや、何のために?
Well, I'll take her over anyone in the Olympics right now. Next up, her chat suggested Sei, and even told her that she was totes doing some G-rated stuff.
おすすめのエロゲ紹介といこう。1本目はこの金色ラブリッチュというこのゲームを。
The cinema snob of Arrow Gaze. FYI, I checked, and Kiniro Loverage is indeed a real game, though I'm not too familiar with myself. That said, I did actually play Sei's next game, and yeah, I think most of us had the same reaction to it. Some memes will never truly die. And if you want an explanation for this meme, well, you can look it up for yourself. It's actually really easy. It's so legendary, in fact, that it makes it hard for people to look for a decent boat. Lastly, she decided to check on Haru, who was playing Weiss Schwartz, which is a massive anime crossover TCG with characters from Kadokawa's many licensed properties. That said, as far as I know, I don't think it has an official online game, so I wonder if this is supposed to be like a stand-in for Yu-Gi-Oh! Or something. Granted, if that had been the case, then we wouldn't have been able to pull off this great VA gag that they were so proud of that they even put it on X. Hikasa, listen to me, girl. You're not doing an interview right now. You're in an anime, so act. So, yeah, for context, this character was Ria Scramry from High School DD, who was also played by Yoko Hikasa, who notoriously has a very bad case of the A-cup angst IRL. So anyway, to end her stream, she introduced either an official or fan-made card of Aoyuki. I mean, either way, it's more than likely this will become an actual card of Weiss Schwartz along with the other characters of this show, since this anime is under the Kadokawa umbrella. However, the thing that Aoyuki focused on wasn't whether or not this card was like Medbreaker or something, but rather its flavor text that had some pretty deep-cut references to her streams. And assuming Haru had helped create this card, it would mean that she was likely a frequent watcher of her streams, which understandably made her really happy. And yet, when you really stop and think about it, it's only kind of natural. I mean, when you get down to it, content creators can often just be fans of each other as long as they create stuff that do appeal to each other. And like any celebrity or person we admire in some way, deep down we're not that much different and no better than the other. Hell, sometimes we end up learning that our idols are far below us, but I digress. Point is that while Aoyuki was professionally obligated to treat her senpai like Haru as her superior at the company they worked for, as a person and fellow content creator, especially one that had developed such a unique fan base, she had every right to consider themselves as equals, and this would be best highlighted by the third act of this episode. The next day, as a part of that singing collab that had been mentioned sporadically throughout the show, Aoyuki's contributing segments had been scheduled at their main studio. Thus, someone was sent to pick her up, who turned out to be...
Konnichiwa, Aoyuki-chan?
Mickey Mouse? Oh god, they're gonna buy out Hololive just to add them to the MCU. Look, we get that you're desperate enough to bring back Robert Downey Jr., but you don't have to drag everyone else down with you. Anyway, again from Aoyuki's perspective, every non-VTuber, sans kind of her manager, were these faceless mob characters. Her manager was the one sort of exception, likely because she was an important business consultant. Thus, this driver, whom she was totally meeting for the very first time, was another one of them, even though she quickly proved to have quite the personality herself. Ironically, that would be one of the least cringy Itasha I've ever seen. But yeah, this is likely meant to further highlight what might be a bit of a dissociative disorder with Aoyuki, especially considering the twist at the end of this. And it was also meant to show that the driver was kind of insane, which again, considering that same twist, it does end up making a whole lot of sense. At the studio, Aoyuki met several of her VTuber friends IRL for the first time, including Nekoma, who called her Dio, which I'm pretty sure that's more of Haru's thing. Though surprisingly, it was also her first time meeting with Mashron, the person who designed her avatar. I think this is meant to show how their jobs had kind of kept them apart from each other through their computer screens, which of course furthered how she viewed them just as their VTuber personas. As a result, she didn't even realize her driver was someone she really should have recognized, at least by voice. Yeah, this is actually a really good twist that really showed how Aoyuki viewed the world, to the point that she couldn't connect the dots at first, in spite of hearing Haru's voice countless times by this point. However, now that she was this deep down the VTuber rabbit hole, she could also now recognize that she was working closely with her idol. Seniorities aside, she had indeed reached the upper echelons of their company, which made the scene all the more touching, even as she continued to thirst for Haru like crazy. Anyway, the song collab's recordings were done with no major issues, and the resulting music video was yet another great tribute from the show to something right out of a VTuber collab. It may not have been a Sakuga masterpiece like some of Hololive's recent stuff, but the still frames and editing were cutely done and made it a hell of a lot livelier than some of the previous ending themes we've gotten in the show so far. It also did a good job showing the unity between the VTubers, with our main character in particular being able to stand out front and center with her idol. With that though, the episode ended with Aoyuki revealing that the next generation of VTubers from Live On were going to debut soon, meaning that she'd be a senpai VTuber, and that the shoe would soon be on the other foot. This was, and likely was meant to be, the end of a first major character arc for our main lead. I think it was meant to really show how far Aoyuki has come and how she managed to achieve such great notoriety, albeit not entirely intentionally. Still, this episode did a great job in showing how through mostly earnest effort, she managed to achieve equal footing with her foremost idol, who is quite the character in her own right. While I was certainly expecting Haru to be a bit of a standout based on all of the build-up from previous episodes, she managed to surpass pretty much all my expectations, mostly thanks to Yoko Hikasa's insanely energetic performance. I think the character was likely based on Subaru Ozora, just going by the general design of a short-haired girl with red and blue as her primary colors, and of course just the general tomboy personality. And while she never quite devolved into full-on quacking, Hikasa's usual hyperactive rants did happen to match up well with the famous Hololive VTuber. Though putting aside the rants and or quacking, it's easy to understand why Aoyuki admired her so much. She's genuinely a friendly girl who tries to subtly encourage her to be just as excitable as her. It's how she was able to help Aoyuki shake off some of her initial jitters for the music video before completely exercising them by revealing who she really was. Such an approach was probably the best for Aoyuki, who even with her co-workers, whom she had spoken to many times before, she was still a little awkward when it came to the IRL meetings. Hell, just the fact that she still had to view them as their VTuber personas really made it clear that she had some trepidations. And yet, by slowly getting to know them better, as well as ranking up in their company, she is opening up a lot more without total reliance on getting plastered, as she was even able to become Shua without beer by the end. Combine that with some good slapstick and referential humor in the first half of the episode, and overall, this is just a good conclusion to what I would consider to be the first arc of her story as a VTuber, now that she has become a veteran, and can now start to interact with everyone on more familiar terms. Of course, now comes the next phase of Aoyuki's career, where she'll mentor the newbies, who, judging by all of those photos, might be hinting at some problematic gohai in the same vein as this chick.
俺の目をまっすぐ見れるか。
走ってきました。
私だって同じ気持ちだ。
Nice job! You managed to get rid of all of those evil space bunnies before they could cause any harm.
ダメだ。そらそうと思うほど凝視してしまう。しかし、改めてなんてか。
Hey, dude, if you want to be based, no one here is gonna judge you.
毒入りか。ああ、そうだ。
Yeah, the poison known as calories. Formahout was the third wheel that this show was in need of. I mean, he just adds an additional layer of comedy with him simping hard for Mira, while he's simping for Byakuya. And appropriately enough, both of the Evil Lieutenant's partners are so thick-headed that they're not even totally aware of his feelings towards them between love and loathing. That said, I actually really like this dude because he's legit pretty damn precious, and you do feel kind of bad for him, as Mira was clearly an important villainous inspiration in his life, and in many ways, his idol was betraying those ideals. But then we just go back to him being treated like a literal dog, and it just becomes a fun comedy. Good stuff, and I'm looking forward to see more of this guy, rather than inexplicably reformed Solar. Seriously, that just didn't work for me. Thank you for watching, and as always, be sure to check out some of our other videos on this channel. It's actually been really fun covering all these seasonal anime, as they've each brought their own unique flavors to the table, and I'm looking forward to continuing to maintain this sort of format for the seasons to come. Look forward to it. Until then though, for now my friends, and... Oh, sounds like someone's rage quitting again. Look, this is why I told you to avoid guys with trap trick stacks.